Guys, welcome to the Type 1 Lifting Podcast. I'm with a guest. His actually my neighbor. It's Leon O'Neill. How's it going?
Good. Thank you for having me today.
No problem. I really do appreciate you coming by. And you actually have like a really good, interesting story. So just tell my listeners what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm originally from Manchester, England. So when I was a baby, when I was like one year old, I started passing out a lot and having seizures. So they did a lot of tests on me, and they found out I was hypoglycemic, which is obviously when you have lows. So basically, I'd always pass out, and they couldn't stabilize my sugar. So for years and years, I kind of lived with it, but I'd have seizures all the time. And obviously we're talking in the early 80s right now. So this was a very, very rare, medical condition. So eventually they got a doctor from America who was actually born in Africa to come over and do a surgery on me. And they worked it out that they took 95% of my pancreas out. To kind of stabilize it, because I was producing that much insulin, so they needed to take 95% of it out to make me regulate. So they took that out when I took it out, I was two and a half years old. I always knew at one point that I wouldn't produce enough insulin with only having 5% left. So I just lived life. They told me just to live life and continue living just a normal life. Obviously I always had the back in the day, I always remember as a baby having it was huge, not like the little blood glucose machines now. They were. I remember it being real huge. So I always checked my glucose. I checked it every day, a few times a day, even as a baby. Just got used to it. Something I've always lived with, and then I just continued to live life. I've always been active, big soccer player or football in the UK. I actually played professional soccer until I was 19. Played professional from I was 16 to 19 in England before coming to America on a soccer scholarship. Glucose was fine still. I just tested all the time. The 5% pancreas was keeping me going, keeping me stable right through my 20s. And then when I got to 30 years old, just started to lose a lot of weight, weren't feeling great. Obviously, I'd been out of college at that time for probably six years or so. Obviously, working, married, had a kid. So just wasn't feeling well. Then I started seeing a endocrinologist. He was actually here in Atlanta, Georgia. We did some blood tests, and basically I had a really high A1C of like 9.4, and I'd always been in the 5s. Even in my mid-20s, I remember going home when I was 21, and after college season I think it was like 4.3. So they was like, wow,
that's impressive.
Keep going, everything's fine. And it just seemed to hit a wall when I got to 30. So they started me on long acting insulin as well as fast acting, and here I am today. So a bit of like I said, I guess I don't have the enzyme that attacks the pancreas. It was more of an surgery-induced diabetes, but something I've always lived with since I was born. So
with all the modern medicine that's coming out now, do you think that if you were born like around this time, do you think they would probably do the same exact thing with like the removal of 95% of the pancreas, or do you think it would be a different scenario?
Yeah, I think reading back and it was funny because when I first moved to the States, when I emigrated out here, I asked for all my medical records to be sent over, obviously, so an endocrinologist here could look into my background. And I kind of read the notes. And to be fair, the doctors in the UK were trying to hold off as long as they could. I read it, they were saying to my mother, like, he'll grow out of this, let's just leave it. And that went on for like 2 years, but my mum would just like couldn't control, like she was getting really worried, like because I kept having seizures still, and she was forcing sugar down me with milk, and she's like, we've got to act right now. So I'd like to think maybe they'd have had more, especially now with the Dexcom. They might have had something like that on me as a baby, and kind of I would have had the warnings that I was dropping real low, and I could have managed it with sugar and glucose, knowing I was getting that low before I had the seizures, which might have kept me stable, and they might not have had to take it out. But that'd be the only thing I could probably think of that might have stopped him from taking it out.
How many seizures would you usually get?
Looking at my records, it was at least a couple of months for sure. And I forget there was a medicine. It's in the record. It was some medicine they'd give me, which when I pass out, my mum would obviously put sugar and stuff. But there was also something else she'd put on my tongue, and it'd bring me back round. But again, who knows what would have been if it would have been in this time.
So you say you played professional. Actually, I didn't even know about this. You played professional soccer for like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
So how was that? How was that?
And like I said, I was never. So I went in England. You finish school at 16. So I'd always played for. I used to play for the Blackburn Rovers, which was at the time a Premier League academy. I played right through there till I was 16, and then I signed for a professional academy. You leave school. And you sign an academy, they're called youth training schemes. So I signed 3 years, 16 till I was 19. I also represented Great Britain U19 colleges. So at the time, I'd never had any issues with it. Once he took the pancreas out, my A1Cs were fine, I was healthy. I'd never had lows after soccer or anything. It was weird. It was just maintained, and I'd check it now and again. But the older I got, like I'd be like 14, 15, 16, and I'd just become more confident that I was just living without it. If that makes sense, I would just like I'd never felt like I had diabetes. I'd check it now and again if I weren't feeling great, and obviously every 6 months the doctor I'd get all my blood work done. But apart from that, I just lived normal. And then just as you know, the older you get, it starts playing on your mind, especially when I had the bad A1C and I had protein in the urine, and so now it's and the Dexcom has its positives, but it's probably has taken over my life more than it did when I was in my teens and in my early 20s for sure.
Yeah. So I've always had a hard time with continuous glucometers. I had the Freestyle Libre. I had it for 3 days. Didn't work out. Actually, I nicked it on the one of the hospital armrest of the office chairs. So I leaned down to tie my shoe, and I came back up and nicked it. And the crazy thing was, I would have like 120 point differences from my finger prick to the glucometer.
Reality of it.
Yeah, and it looked like a roller coaster. It would be like, super high, and then just like it would just go straight bottom right out, and it'd be the same thing over and over again.
Really?
Because what I would do is I would check it, and 10 minutes later, check it again, it'd still be high, take more insulin, and like not wait for the other insulin to kick in, and so
and then it'd all hit at once.
Yeah, and so it just got me like way too stressed out, and like my wife wants me to get on the Dexcom, and the pump, but it's just, I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, the Dexcom. And that was when they tried to put me on it. When they first diagnosed me, when they officially started me on insulin, I think I was 30 years old, and I went in and saw the nurse practitioner for diabetes, and I forget what they did at the time, but they put something on me that was looking at the Dexcom wasn't out at the time, but it was something similar to it. And they recommended it, and I didn't want to do it. I'm very stubborn. Like, I didn't want to even start insulin. I was kind of in denial. I'm like, I can do this. I don't need insulin, and I had the same mindset with the Dexcom, even the Dexcom, and because I just didn't want to be looking at it all the time and kind of, I guess, thinking about it. But now I've got it. I don't think I could live without it. But it definitely has its ups and downs where I see the pattern of me dropping, where before I wouldn't have known, and I'd have just left it, and then I'd have just stabled out around 100, 120, and I'd have been fine. But now I see the pattern, and I'm dropping, and I'm like, I kind of get anxious and probably put unnecessary sugar in me when I don't need it, and then I have another spike, and I'm like, damn, now I've got to inject again. So that's the only The only negative I have, I kind of look at it probably too much, and I'm watching the patterns all the time, and I probably don't need to be that concerned about it, because I've only had really one real bad low, and it alerted me, and I just took some sugar and was fine.
Now, when does it usually hit? Like for like the highs and lows, like do you set it yourself for the numbers at all? Or?
I do. I just because of the amount of exercise, like. When I work out, I'm normally doing 10k, or I'm doing 90 minutes on the elliptical, or so I don't like if I'm under 200 when I do my workout. I normally get like 45 minutes in and I'm 80, and I have to stop, and my endocrinologist would always say, well, just have a banana with you, an orange juice, and it's just not convenient for me, so I kind of set it a little bit higher. So I normally work out around 280. But by the time I'm finishing at like 110, 120. So I do have my alert high, pretty high, to be honest. 280, the doctor will probably say it's too high. And then it alerts me when I'm low at like 80. But I always feel it. I feel sweaty. I always feel it.
Yeah.
So it's not like I've always known I feel clammy, I don't feel good, and I look, and I'll be like 85 and I'll know. So it's good that way.
So is it mainly just your hands feeling sweaty, or like just like your legs, or?
Yeah, it's just like the clammy hands is my biggest sign. And honestly, I've never had a low when I've not known. I don't know what it is, and maybe probably because I'm so conscious about it. But I've never like been except once I was sleeping and it woke me up. But apart from that, in the day, if I'll feel clammy and I'll look and it'll say I'm dropping and I'm like 85, 86. So I kind of know.
Yeah. Well, since I'm like still relatively new to diabetes, like to getting diabetes like 4 years in, so the way I feel low is it feels like I have like a couple drinks in me, and then like my legs get really.
Oh really?
My legs start feeling weird and I start getting sweaty, and that's if I'm standing around, like walking around. But if I'm sitting down doing absolutely nothing,
you don't know.
Nope. Like sometimes not much.
Yeah.
But it's very rare. Like I would be walking, like I was in my office this week, and all of a sudden, like I just got up and I'm like, okay. So I checked it. It was like in the 60s.
Oh.
And so like the lowest I've ever been is 18. And I've never passed out. I mean, knock on wood. I mean, that's not even wood, but but like, pretty low. Yeah, and like the reason why it was on Christmas Eve, and I was wrapping presents, and I was at my in-laws house. My brother-in-law's house. He had cake, and I just dosed it way too much.
Yeah,
and I didn't realize it, and
started.
Yeah,
dropping.
Just started dropping. I got up and I almost fell over, and I'm like, okay. And so I checked. It was like 18, and I just immediately went to like the Santa's cookies and just went to town on those things. So
do you have like an emergency shot? Oh really?
No, I just eat.
Yeah,
pretty much. So
my doctor the one in because obviously we just moved back from New Orleans, and I expressed some concerns about because backstory, I guess. I was on Levemir for nearly 6 years. I was been on Levemir, and I took 50 units a day. Didn't split it up. I took it around dinner time, and it controlled me really well. Except once it got into so I took it around 5-6 p.m. every day. But when I get to around 1 p.m. in the afternoon, and I'd spike high because it wore off. So I had my last endocrinologist meeting. They kind of looked at my Dexcom and said, you're having all these spikes in the afternoon. That's the Levemir wearing off. It's only 18 hours. And I said, well, I don't want to take it at night because when I take it before bed, like I just don't feel comfortable. Because the Levemir kind of spikes in the first 8-9 hours. So I'm like, I don't want that happening when I'm in bed. But so I feel comfortable taking it at dinner time. So they looked at my charts on the Dexcom, and they said, you're having a lot of spikes in the afternoon, but my A1C was still good. Like my cholesterol were good, my kidneys were good, liver. The A1C was, I think the last time, 5.7. But she said, would you try Tresiba? It doesn't spike. It stays in you for, I think, 30 hours.
Yeah.
But it doesn't overlay. So I said, yeah, I'll give it a try. How many units? And she said, same as what you're doing with Levemir. So I started 50 units of it, and within the first week, like, I was literally going from... I'd take it at the same... Actually, I took it in the morning. I've switched times. I wanted to take this at the morning. So I switched it. So I started taking it in the morning because it lasts longer. And then I'd get to like mid-afternoon around 1 o'clock, and I'd just plummet. I'd go from like 200 to 80 without any fast acting. I'm like, this...
Yeah, that's crazy.
I'm like, this is too much insulin. And then in the nights, I was having serious crashes, and I'm like... But I just kept with it, and then on Thanksgiving, I think I was like 200. I'd had like a big dinner. I was like 200. I had potatoes and stuff, and then I had a big piece of cake like yourself. And I thought, so I had some, and I said, So I calculated like I always did, and I put 8 fast units in me. And I looked at my Dexcom. And normally when I have cake or anything, a bunch of potatoes, I normally spike real high. And I said to my wife, I'm like, I'm staying flat right now, and I've just put 8 units in me. I'm concerned. And she said, well, just keep an eye on it. And then straight away, my Dexcom, within literally 20 minutes, I went from like 250 to 110. I plummeted. So we started like getting ready to go to the hospital. I'm getting in my car. Because the 8 units hadn't even kicked in yet.
Yeah.
So we pounded a bunch of sugar, and I think I got down to 60, and I was still dropping, but then I flattened out. But ever since then, I've been with this. I actually dropped my units to 20 units, and I'm slowly making my way back up to seeing what the right dosage is. But switching to Toshiba just hasn't been a good experience and a fun experience so far, because I was so comfortable.
Yeah.
To be honest, it's like I said to my wife today, there was no need to make that recommendation to switch. I was regulated, I was comfortable, everything apart from a few afternoon spikes. But now I'm having drops and highs and lows. I'm all over the place, so I might think about going back. But
so do you think it could be because your doctor wants to prescribe this new medication so she can get, well, he or she could get paid a little bit more, or
yeah,
like
I don't know. Is that how it works?
I don't know, because like a lot of the docs, like they always try new things or something like that, like another medications just to
see how it works.
Yeah, so you're kind of like almost like the guinea pig a little bit. So
yeah, to be honest, she did push it on me a few times, and I said I'd give it a try. And to be honest, I probably transitioned at the wrong time. I'd obviously taken a new role. I was in the middle of a move to Atlanta, so I was living in hotels. My family was still in New Orleans. Obviously, I went back for Thanksgiving, and that's when I had that big drop. But I probably should have got the family up here, moved in the house, started the new role, and then transitioned to the new insulin so I could be more focused on it. Because as you know, staying in hotels, you're not on your regular schedule, you're not eating like you normally do, working like you normally do, or working out like you normally do. So it might have had a different effect on me. But it's funny because I'm back up to, it's crazy to be honest, I'm back up to 40 units now on Toshiba. And like I said, once I had that massive drop, I dropped myself to 20. And I've been increasing 2 units like every few days to get to the levels I want, and making sure I'm not having any drops after soccer or exercise. But I'm up to 40 units now. I've got a feeling I'm going to end up at 50. But it's funny though, but I'm not having, I don't know what it was. Like that first 3 weeks when I started on that new insulin, it were having massive drops during the night and days on me. And I just, who knows if I might, once I get to 50, the body's a strange thing, and it does what it wants, but it definitely didn't have a good impact on me, that first transition. So we'll see how this goes.
Well, that's good. I mean, I'm always down for trying like new medications. Yeah. They actually, with my insurance was so high, they actually try to get me on this new medication that came out, and they said if you contact the I forget what the medication is called, but is it FISAP? No, it's something else. It just literally just came out, and so they said if you talk to the company, they'll give you a coupon for like 10 pens for $100.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I was like, oh, I'm in.
Yeah.
I'm in. And thank goodness my wife gets this like high cost medication that we don't really have to pay for. We get it for free, but it goes to our deductible. And so we've already met our deductible already, which is huge.
Yeah, especially in February.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is, originally the insulin I was gonna take, they said it was gonna be like $1,400 for just like 2 boxes, and I'm like, I can't afford that.
Yeah.
And so now it's down to $75.
And have you started the new insulin?
Not yet. I haven't gotten it yet, so
Okay.
I'm just waiting for the pen that you gave me.
The Humalog.
Yeah.
So the other one's going to be what, like a long acting?
It's Novolog, so it's just almost like Humalog a little bit.
Yeah, so the fast acting stuff. Okay. Yeah, I know there's always some kind of new, which is good for diabetes. There's always some new technology, new insulin. I remember when I was a baby, like I talked about the big machines. I think when they first took my pancreas out, I remember like they were mixing stuff in syringes and all that kind of stuff. But there's always some new technology and some way. I know I've seen some research about like they can like maybe do like put something in under your skin now what acts like a pancreas. I think they're testing that for juvenile diabetes, so that'd be obviously amazing for juvenile diabetes or even ourselves if it does come to out into the market. So
awesome. All right, so I kind of want to get into because I didn't know about the professional soccer thing.
Yeah.
So what was training like throughout the whole like process, and do you kind of still do the same amount of training just like when you were playing like back in like your teenage years?
Well, I think the back when so I'd obviously played soccer my entire life, and I got picked up by a club. I was 12 years old, but it wasn't. I think the Americans, if I'm honest, train more soccer, and I think they burn them out a lot quicker than they do in Europe. But at that age, I was training just twice a week, a game on the weekend, and then once you got to 60 games, it were all monitored. Once you got to 60 games within a year, they shut you down. So it was all monitored, and then obviously when we got to 16 and we signed like full time, it was every day. It was like being here, I guess, because obviously I came here on a scholarship when I think I was 20 years old when I came on a scholarship, but it was kind of the same training every day, and then we'd go college once a week. But my body, like I said, I didn't have no reaction to it, but train every day. We used to train at 10 a.m, and I always felt that were good. We trained 10 till noon, and it was always good for my body because I get the breakfast, and then it'd be noon, and I felt like that exercise in the morning kept me stable all day. Whereas sometimes, obviously, like now I work out at night, but it's kind of you kind of can be high during the most of the day, and so. But it was my body it worked out great for me. We'd work out every day, 10 till 12, grab lunch, go to college now and again, or go home. So,
do you do any weight training at all, or was this mainly just like
not during
cardio?
Season? Not during season. We did in pre-season and off-season. But one thing about over there, which was good, the season went from like August through till May. Where here, when you're in college, the soccer season's just in the fall. You know, like a full year to wait again. So there was a lot of lifting in college in the United States compared to in Europe. So, but back home I didn't. We lifted like in the off season and stuff, but not like they do over here. So
yeah, they've actually incorporated a lot of like lifting, even during season for some of these soccer players to get stronger. Yeah, because I was actually training one girl. She was going to Mercer, and we had our whole workout program. And we just pretty much did the workout in the off season, and then she actually mailed me the in season. There was some like back squatting workouts and stuff like that. So they've actually done a study where they had marathon runners. One test group actually just did the typical running, nothing else, and the other group did a little bit of like Romanian deadlifts, and back squatting. And the study, I forget when the study was, but they said that the people that actually lifted the weights actually ran faster and longer compared
during
to
the soccer season.
Yeah, or during like the marathon run.
Yeah. I think even cause what year was it? So when I signed with the academy, I think it was like 1999, and even then in England, the Premier League, the top elite clubs, sports science were just kicking in, and that only really kicked in because we started bringing a lot of international players into the league, and now it's saturated. But I think like the Italians brought like a lot of their nutrition, the sports science guys. So the sports science, even then, it were nothing like it would be like today.
Yeah.
I remember like doing like the body fat test for pre-season. It'd be one where they used to pinch you and stuff.
Yeah, the capers.
Yeah.
Whatever, yeah.
So now it's all the bob pods and stuff. You sit in the machines and they measure the air density or whatever it is. So sports science has obviously come a long way. It'd be interesting to see how I know there's a few players in the MLS with a Dexcom, and I'd be interested to see how that works while you're actually playing at that level.
Yeah.
Like I wear it now, but I'm playing in like the over 30 leagues. It's not really physical, but I'd be interested to see like with the actual people grabbing you and pulling, like how stable that is.
Yeah, they probably use like a boatload of tape just to cover it up, which is crazy.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that works.
I know there was I don't know if he still plays for the Seattle Sounders, but he's like a forward. He was a type 1 diabetic, and he has a tattoo on his forearm with like the medical symbol that says type 1 diabetic on it, so people actually know.
Yeah, if he passed out, what's going on with him.
And there's actually an NFL player. He's a tight end. He plays for the Baltimore Ravens. He's a type 1 diabetic too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it was crazy because they would actually test his blood sugar after every quarter.
Every quarter they test it? Huh. Yeah, when I was playing, I'd know it. Like I say, I always kind of kept an eye on it, and even when I was over here in the States on a soccer scholarship, I did test it. Like I tested at the beginning of the game, at the end of the game, and that'd be as much as I'd really be conscious about it. I wouldn't be like every 10 minutes coming off with my coach. I would never. But we did have a really, really bad type 1 diabetic. He was a goalkeeper in the college team, and I always felt like I was blessed. Versus, like, he had pumps in him. He was always having lows and putting a bunch of sugar in him all the time. And at the time, I remember thinking, wow, I don't have it as bad as I think. But I guess that it is what it is. So.
Yeah, I've seen some really bad diabetics. In my career in the medical field, real bad, and it's scary. These kids, like I worked in an ER for children's like emergency department. I see these kids just not taking their insulin because they just are like they think they're Superman. They just down a Mountain Dew, like a whole bottle of Mountain Dew, and I'm like, I know you're doing it to lose weight. Like, cut the crap. You know, it's not really worth it. But it's insane. Like these kids, like they just don't care. Yeah,
I couldn't imagine growing up in the United States through your teens being a type 1 diabetic. It must be tough with like all the like junk food available and pizza, and like I always ate pretty healthy back in the UK, and obviously being heavily involved in sports, but I couldn't imagine just being not really active in school here in a type 1. It must be tough with the diet that the kids have today.
Now, is the American diet kind of like going over to England a little bit, you think, or?
I just find like anybody who comes over to the United States from family or friends, and like or even people I know in the UK, when they come over and I'll see it. Like I have some people from my town now. They're in Florida, and I looked at the Facebook. They're down in Disneyland now, and I looked at the Facebook 2 days ago, and they were posting pictures of the portions. And they're like, look at the size of this. This is like 4 meals. And I just laughed. I made a comment and laughed. But I think that's the biggest thing. I think it's the portion sizes here. It's a lot of food. So I can imagine growing up with type 1 diabetes as a teen, it'd be pretty tough to manage over here for sure. Yeah.
Now, when you play soccer now, so are you still trying to hit like the 280 mark still, or what's the good range for you to when you start before playing a game?
Yeah, I don't. It's funny because the other day I started at 200 and I was a little bit concerned, but I was fine. When I first started taking that to CBOW at the time as well, I think I got up to like 25 units, and I was like 260 at start, and again it probably let it take over my mind a little bit too much. I warmed up and stretched, had a little jog before the game, and I saw the pattern. I had the bottom arrow, and I'd gone down to 220. And I'm like, man, if I'm already like that, what am I going to be like when the game starts? But I was fine. But the other day I started at 200, and I think when I finished I was 130.
Mm-hmm.
So I was fine. There was no real effect.
So that's really interesting, because a lot of people that I've talked to is when they actually start like doing running and like or like high interval training and stuff, like they tend to spike up. Yeah. Including me. Like sometimes I would get done working out and be like, okay, it's like 280, 300. Yeah. And I'm like, I understand the hormones are like the fight or flight mode. Yeah. And so, but yeah, it's interesting that how you can be at 280 and then go down to like a normal level just by working out.
I think again it comes down to the exercise. Like if I'm playing soccer, like I still do like to start pretty high, but I don't really plummet. I probably spike. Like sometimes, like I'll come off the field and I'll be 300, but then I'll drop. But if I'm swimming or like just elliptical or pretty steady heart rate and pace, I'll slowly come down. And I won't have a plummet after. When I finish, that's where I'm at. Where soccer or running, like a 5k or 10k, afterwards I can drop pretty intense. So I guess it depends on which exercise I'm doing.
Yeah.
So
yeah, well, that's awesome. Well, I really do appreciate you coming next door, two houses over, just to get here.
It's always good to talk to people, and again, it's just. I think a lot of people who fight in the diabetes, anything you can share, or especially with new technology, new medicines, is always good to talk to somebody. So
yeah. Now I forgot to add in the beginning, the way I found out he was actually a diabetic was I was wearing one of my diabetic things T-shirts, and he came up to me. He's like, "Oh, I like the shirt," and I was like, "Oh, thank you." And then he asked me, "Are you a diabetic?" And I said, "Yes, I am." Yeah. And then he just let me know that he was as well. And then I told him, I think last week, I told him about like my insurance problem, and he was, I was very grateful they actually had an extra pen of Humalog available, so he just gave it to me, which I really. Even Sarah really does appreciate,
No worries.
Do that?
I know being from the UK where medicine's free, and I know the effect here in the United States that a disease like diabetes can be costly. So it'll cost a lot of money. But even like I said, talking about it and passionate, it was funny because I think it was like 3 weeks ago I jumped in an Uber, and I don't know, I got talking to the lady, and she reading like Chick-fil-A chicken, and I think it was real early, and I might have said, "Wow, that's early for chicken" or something, and she said, "Well, I've just been diagnosed with diabetes, so I'm trying to just eat protein," and not everyone's as educated or as lucky as we are, just coming through athletes and sports and wellness. And I just got talking to her and just found myself in this real deep educational conversation with her, and then she started telling me her levels, like 300 and 400, but that's normal, and I'm like, listen, trust me, that's not normal. You've got to be, like, your body's going to, like, having some effects on your kidneys. And I just found myself really passionate educating her and talking about the chicken. Even though it's protein from Chick-fil-A, there's probably still 20-30 gram of carb in that,
and sugar
and so someone else was with me, and they're like, "Man, you know everything about diabetes." And that's when I said, "Well, I'm a type 1 diabetic." And I just found myself at the time thinking, wow, if I could go back to school or something, maybe I would have been like tried to be a nurse practitioner for diabetes, because I'm really am passionate about it, and I definitely like to, because I was there. I remember when they told me, like, my wife was there when I was 30, and I'm not ashamed to say it. She said, if you don't start insulin now, your kidneys are going to shut down. Like, you've got a lot of protein. And I started crying, and my wife was there, and I was just in denial. I'm like, I'm fine, I can do it. I know I've never had to take insulin, and I tried to, they put me on some fast acting for a little bit, just said, just take this every time you, but they knew eventually I was going to, like, crack, and I did. I'm like, I can't manage it, it's too high still. And so somebody like that in the Uber who just been diagnosed recently, and she's still in that denial process where she thinks 300's normal, and it's just because she's stressed, and I'm like, it's not.
Yeah.
You need to start. She's like, I'm not starting insulin. I'll be on it for life. And I'm like, you gotta do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you have no choice.
Yeah. She's like, I don't. This is only this high because I'm stressed, and I'm like, you ain't 300 because you're stressed.
Yeah, yeah.
So I try to educate her and stuff, and it's funny because my wife's in medical field. She's a physical therapist, and she'll say, like, Leon, not everyone's like you who manages it, is concerned about it, watch it. We see this, like, I know you'd like to go into this field, but I think you'd get frustrated because a lot of people don't care. You know what I mean?
Yeah, until it's like the very last minute, like something happens, like a toe falls off, or
it's too late.
Yeah,
it's too late. But I always, it's probably because I'm always looking at the desk on my phone. But I could probably look now and tell you, like, just feeling now. I bet I'm around 170. I'm 181.
Yeah.
I said, what, 170?
Yeah.
But so I always know where I am, and I feel it. So, and again, it's probably taken over my life a little bit, but I appreciate you having me and talking today. And if we can make a difference to any type 1 diabetes out there, just sharing things, hopefully we can.
Now, do you have like any social media or anything like that like, say if like someone listens to this, they can reach out to you, like Instagram or like Facebook or anything like that?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. The name's Leon, and then number 00762. So I'm on Instagram. I don't have any like specific, like, I guess, diabetes pages or anything like that. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah.
I mean, but you don't need to.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of people that just want to do pictures of their life. They don't really care. They like that people don't know they have diabetes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I just have it because of my t-shirt company.
Yeah.
And I want to, just make sure people know that, like, there's other diabetics out there, and that these guys are like the little ninjas, like the secret, the quiet guys, but they're like trucking along. And if they hear your experience, I mean, it can motivate them to get better.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And because I think a lot of people, especially when they're first diagnosed, are a bit anxious about working out. What is it going to do for me body, and am I going to drop, am I going to have lows? And again, I said it with a guy who played soccer with me, there's always somebody who has it a little bit worse, and at the end of the day, there's a lot worse things to have out there than diabetes. And medicine's getting better, technology's getting better, and it really is just something you can live with now and be positive, and something you can definitely, I guess not fight, but definitely, I guess stabilize it and live with it. So.
Awesome. All right, we'll leave it there. And guys, you can always reach me at Type 1 Lifting at Instagram, Twitter, and also Facebook. So thank you guys for listening. Have a good one.